Welcome to Warblog. It's a bit behind at the moment. I sort of forced myself to add all these scenarios, but I don't really have time to sort of complete them. As you can see, there's quite a bit coming soon. This one's looking pretty promising. So maybe just, need to add the what's-its onto there. But I'm going to do, there's loads and loads that I could do. I think I might have done that one. I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm looking for this one. So we're going to play this, but ever so quickly, because I just realised I've got lots to do. But I sort of want to do something. So basically, this is the advance on Basra by the British forces. And I emphasise British forces because basically the Americans sort of bypass on this road, sort of going north, basically towards Baghdad. So they don't really do the Basra thing, and I'm not sure exactly whether it's the same strategy as, because what year is it? Yeah, this is the 2003. So essentially, it's a continuation of this sort of similar sort of strategies. So, for example, if we look at the Iraq War, 2003, you'll see there's a few in the list now. But the battles, for example, like Syria and Najaf, where they basically just bypass the towns and then leave something to sort of take care of it. For example, here, if you actually look in the order of battle, there's these sort of massive, it's all done with all these little companies and whatnot, and then turn 7 you get all these sort of regiments come on, and the regiments essentially don't really take part in the battle here. They just, when they come on here, they just go all the way up this road and all the way up here. I think they might sort of come here, stage here, and then go across here, because that, I think, is the road towards where they were going. But all that is, fairly irrelevant, in the immediate sense. I was talking about this one, but the same principle happens. So basically what they're doing, they're bypassing these towns, but they decide they've got to capture them, because otherwise the troops come out and take the roads. But there's no actual accounting for that fact in this particular write-up on the Wikipedia. And it's not as well written as some of the others for some reason. So essentially, these are just token units, and this is a token unit. So basically, you need to just take these along the road here. I will be doing an exit thing. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I might actually put dedicated exit hexes on, or I might have every line on the board edge as a exit hex. Just in case you didn't really understand what was said there. An exit hex, a hex that you can exit the map from. So we go into the play mode, and that will be done. Obviously, it's not going to be done for a while, but there'll be a little thing there, and then if you've moved into there, you would then drag your unit onto the exit thing, and then it would give you an option to exit, and you'd say yes, and it would be incredibly convoluted and boring, but you'd be able to then move these units along this road and take them off. So that's what they're there for. And these units, and basically, they say the British were chosen to sort of take out Basra, which took 2 weeks, because of their experience in Northern Ireland. I found that a bit weak, really. I mean, I can't believe that a decision was made quite along those lines. It sounds like a bit of a rough deal, really, and considering the only experience we had in Northern Ireland was walking around with guns and showing people red cards and shouting at them a lot. Very different. I mean, there was no house-to-house clearance, and I don't know. But anyway, that's what it says in the Wikipedia. But I don't really think there's too much to be taken in that. So essentially, we've got all these units down here. We've gone into play mode, so we can't really see. So let's maybe just go back. They're all quite specific. Now, it says that basically commandos, Royal Marine Commandos, did such and such. So I put the 40 and 42nd in, but there might have been more. 3 para they were in, but whether it's 1, 2 companies, I don't know. So all of these things are particularly specifically specified, but you know, other than I put the Royal Artillery Company in, there was no specification in the sort of some of the details that I saw, but I don't imagine they didn't go in without any artillery, and they've got a fair amount of air support. I was going to give the Iraqi some aircraft on the grounds that they had them, but they didn't use them. But then, you know, for every Iraqi aircraft I gave the Iraqis, which in assumption they wouldn't use, I'd have to put an equal number of coalition aircraft to sort of counter that, you know, like at least 3 or 4, and if you didn't use them then you'd have too many aircraft. So we've assumed that the Iraqi Air Force is grounded because of air superiority that is held across the whole theatre, so to speak. So we're going into the play mode. Now obviously we've got these units here to move, but let me just get the little mouse tool out. Like I said, I'm going to try and make this quite quick, but essentially the Americans are sort of going to go along there. You can tell my computer's slow because it doesn't want to do the lines properly. A nice straight line. Now the only thing is sort of worth noting is that, and I'll get onto this. I'll get onto what this implies in a bit. But these are infantry units, and on the road they're quite a way off, considering that this is the sort of road. So they can either sort of go across country, which is going to be slow, because it's going to be one movement to get there, one movement there, and then one there. So it's going to take one, two. It's going to take 3 turns before they're even in position to sort of be able to catch up with these, unless they go along this highway, and that's how I envisaged it, up there and then across there. Now, I haven't really calculated it, but it'd be interesting to figure out whether that is actually quicker or going across this way. Now, I could have deployed them here, but I didn't. So what this implies, as it sort of implies something we'll come to, is I think what you've got to do is, when in the start off, is to deploy these units. So you spend the first few turns deploying things. Now you can continue using your air power because they start off with a lot of sort of air bombardment in advance of the attack. And so what I'd be suggesting and advising is the coalition player in control of the British forces is to actually take your time to actually position your troops. So this would be the limiting factor, the amount of time it takes them to get up there. Now you could go all the way up here and then along here. So you could say, well, these Royal Engineers, Royal Fusiliers, they're going to sort of position themselves there, and until they actually get there, you're not really going to start doing your attack. Now, one thing that is also interesting and worth noting, and to some extent possibly visually misleading, I mean, it's not a secret or anything, but this you can cross this river, so you don't have to battle across this bridge. But the significance of these bridges, obviously, is they're on the road. So we're going to, if we come off terrain, it's going to be quite slow going over country, and it's also going to involve a stop there as they go across the river, but across the river into desert. If they're mechanised, they'll be able to sort of go, I think, 3 or 4. So it was not so bad for mechanised, but for infantry, well, they're going to be going one at a time anyway. So it's still going to take a sort of a fairly long time. But the thing is, what I'm saying is, you don't have to fight across these rivers. So you could position yourself in such a way that you threaten them so much by forming up there, for example, that they then just retreat. And there's these 2 sort of hexes here that they could retreat into to sort of complete a sort of defensive line with a fall back into the centre of Basra. So basically what I'm saying is, when you start off playing, you might want to sort of actually just say, okay, we're going to spend the first 5 turns manoeuvring and positioning ourselves. I mean, it's not rocket science really, in the sense that there's only one location to go, and that's Basra. So it's not as though we can sort of say, well, should we attack from here or should we attack from here? I mean, those could be actually reasonable things to sort of say. I mean, for example, we could come all the way up here, all the way along here, and then come down here. And that might be a really good way to do it, but I don't think so. I mean, I think basically we're going to be looking to, as they did historically, to attack like this. There is a graphic that I used, let me just see if I can go back and show that graphic. Oh, it's not there. Oh well. It's like a BBC sort of graphic that actually shows where the units went, and you'd maybe have to find that. But each of the units actually sort of went into a specific place, but you don't have to copy that. That's just the historic sort of order of battle, so to speak. But basically, they did as I just sort of said there. They basically just surrounded it and went in on all angles, with the presidential palace being one of the first objectives, and also the old town. The old town was taken without any contest, but these are things that are so varied. They're what are called sort of natural variants, natural variables, in that there's no point in trying to reflect what happened, because that's otherwise you wouldn't be playing a game, so to speak, or you wouldn't be sort of vying with alternate histories. So I'm just going to sort of get cracking a little bit with that. Although, as I said, I don't want to really go too far on this. So, first thing to do, I think, is to just sort of get the Americans out of the way. Now they're going to be, I think, doubled because they're entrenched. So they're going to be worth 6. Oh, don't know how they'll do this. I think it's worth getting this around. Would you give me an... That was stupid. Oh, I'll just do it like that. Because instead of going there, I could just go like that. I mean, in theory, the Iraqi unit should have an option to retreat by now. I don't have any such a rule in place, but I know some games do, and it would be convenient. But I think one way to do it might be to it's an idea. I mean, as I do these videos, I'm always thinking. But one way to do it might be, if you've got a 7-to-1, then there's a 20% chance of them actually evading. It's a little bit like irregulars, just because the odds are so great. So it'd be slightly different to the irregulars. We're making the assumptions that as the assaults came in, they actually ran away, as opposed to try and hold them. So as soon as we're sort of gathering quite a superior force here, you might say, well, they're actually running away now, but you wouldn't engage that because we're not going to do that sort of proactive, advanced sort of computer action in your turn. Other games sort of do things like that, or interdictive fire, or etc., etc. in your turn. Well, so because we don't have that, the position where would you sort of apply that? And we could apply that at the stage where we're doing this, but I don't think we're going to get a 7-to-1. So they're going to be worth 6. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5-to-1 plus the 10%, 20% surround. This could be a 6-to-1, possibly a 7-to-1, because we've got tanks against infantry. So this could be a 7-to-1. Let's press the attack button and find out. Yep, and it was a DE. So the American forces basically just wandered through there, and do they have any movement left? Yep, they even have enough movement to continue on their way. Look at that. And to some extent, it's a shame that they are not zero movement. It's a shame that the Americans are not going into Basra, and that's one of the reasons I've sort of included them, so you can sort of see that the Americans were sort of there, and I'm guessing, I don't know whether they were there, but of course they were, because I mean they were part of the whole coalition effort, and but as I sort of just tried to guess or assume or justify, they were probably more interested in moving along this road intact towards Baghdad, leaving the British, due to their fantastic experience elsewhere, to actually do the dirty in Basra, which took 2 weeks. There was a tank battle, a fairly large tank battle, but only, I mean, they say it was fairly large. Quite often tank battles always narratively described as the biggest tank battle since such and such in World War II. There's always some sort of qualification for making it the biggest tank battle since such and such. But the sum total of the result of the tank battle was that the Iraqis lost 14 tanks, and that doesn't seem like a particularly large tank battle. But then again, tanks are pretty effective, and you know, I think when you talk about tank battles historically, like the Battle of the Bulge, where they were just tanks driving around actually shooting at each other, I'm not sure that it was a tank battle like that. You know, the firepower is so intense, so extreme, that it probably didn't last very long, and they were probably heavily supported with tank busters and these A-10s and all the sort of stuff that made it probably easy pickings. You know, they're probably firing sort of over the horizon, so to speak. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it is described as the biggest tank battle since such and such, and 14, but there were 14 tanks, which doesn't strike me as a lot. But anyway, so that's what these tanks here are for. I don't know any of the unit specifications for the Iraqis. So now what we got is this bunch of stuff here. Now, as I said, the thing to do is to sort of try and figure out how far that you can get. And I sort of want to sort of say, what do you think I should do? Because I think I should just move these Royal Fusiliers along this road and up there. And I really can't sort of think in my mind's eye what the best way to do that would be, as I can't think about how far they're going to get along this road. Let's supposing it's 50%. I don't know really. I just don't know how long they're going to get, how far they're going to go down this road. I mean, I could just take a guess, and maybe if it comes out all wrong and pear-shaped, I can go along the track, try to get back on. But that's the limiting factor. What else have we got here? So we've got a lot of mechanized stuff, and they're all infantry with the artillery. So let's experiment by moving they're Marines and paratroopers, so they're going to have different rates, because I'm not together with the rates. So let's see how far we can get along this road. Well, it's just less than 1, so I can get 3 along the road. So 1, 2, 3. That's 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns. It'll take me to get to there. So I'll be battle ready in about 3 turns. Let's say 4 for positioning, because I want to actually move there, there, and there, or cross the river, and 4 or 5 turns. So if I can move 4 moves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take me about 7 turns. I've got 7 turns that way. Well, let's see how far we can get this way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I could be crossing that in 6 turns that way. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4, 5, 6, 7. So to some extent it would be maybe a little quicker, but I'm guessing, because I can't remember what the routes are across these tracks. And I deliberately did put them there in the knowledge that it would be a little more awkward, and because they could have come along on this road, but they didn't all come along on the same road. And these highways are here for a reason, and it's just like in real life. I mean, you might choose the motorway, because it's going to be faster, even though it's actually a longer distance. You can travel faster on it. You know, I'm not saying there's traffic lights here, but if you take the normal roads, these little roads, not the tracks or whatever, you know that you're probably stopping every block for the traffic lights, and it can take you longer to get, you know, this far. Whereas here, you know, in an hour or so, you could do the whole road, and here it'd take an hour to get there or something like that, especially if it's rush hour. And they did actually note that there were traffic jams as they were coming along. This was the highway from hell or something. It's basically famous because it was the route that a lot of the Iraqis retreated on from Kuwait and were bombed to bits. And I think the Highway of Tears or something like that. Maybe that's something else. But yeah, they said that there was so much traffic along that road that there were actually coalition traffic jams. So, you know, we've not considered that really. But anyway, I'm just going to stop just thinking because I want to make this quick. Ooh, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's good. Well, of course, the Americans have cleared the road out, so that's good as well. So they can go through twice as far along the road, look. I find that stuff fascinating. We can start hitting that with the artillery, but we can get there and still fire. So let's just use the artillery because we can. That was pretty good. 2 damage. Now, it's interesting really because if you watched any of my previous videos, I do try to predominate basically to try and emphasize the significance of threatening behavior, and I'm not talking in a sort of criminal or low level sense. Posturing and promenading, but basically what I'm saying is we should be able to get that unit to move without having to engage in combat, because as soon as he sees these units approaching, and I think because we've got so much movement, I'm going to try, and this is what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and go across the river here and then basically present a line along there with these units to move that way. But they're going to sit there until these units are in position here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Isn't going to take that long. 1, 2, probably get there, possibly there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to about there in turn 5. But what I'm trying to say is if we sit there, these units will say, hang on, you know, that's a threatening position. We're not going to win. And then once they get there, they're actually going to give that bridge up without actually having to fight for it. And we had to fight for it there because, well, the fight happened there because we had no choice to run away. We didn't even have a turn. The Iraqis haven't had a turn yet. And so this was just all of a sudden. But here, because we're moving here and then just sitting there for a turn or two, you know, the correct play sequence will be for these units to run away. But obviously if you're just playing a game, you wouldn't necessarily do that unless you didn't want to lose the unit. But strategically, and I'm sort of just going around in circles, repeating myself on this, but strategically that's how it works. But yeah, obviously it's quite difficult for him to go across country, but because we're thinking strategically, so to speak, and positioning our units in advance, that doesn't really matter because we're moving much faster than the other units. Come on. I've got, I won't say problems, but I've had this computer now for a year and it's much worse than the one I had before. They don't really seem to get a lot better. It's got like 4 times as, well, it's got twice as much RAM, but it doesn't use the RAM. And it just seems that as soon as you open up anything, the RAM just becomes full, the CPU's full. It's like, you know, highway engineering. Like there's the old theory, no matter how big you build your freeways and your road networks, they will be full. And it's like that. And you don't need a high-spec computer. You just don't need a computer that's got so many things open like mine does. I don't have the thing there to show what I've got, but I've got tons of stuff open, which I normally do. And but this one's not performing very well. I've always had loads of stuff open, but it seems that, you know, it's particularly crappy. You know, and everything gets slowed down, and you know, so it's not really the game, it's just my stupid computer and me opening everything up. What I should maybe do is, I've got to actually shut everything down, really. I'm talking nonsense now, but I'm going to, I don't know what I want to do with the air power. But because the thing is, if I start targeting something, I want to keep doing it. Now, I think he's going to run away, but he's at Depression 2. What have we got in there? Air defense. Now this air defense 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, he's going to cover that anyway. So whatever I do, I'm going to get these 2 air defense units against me. If I start attacking that, I think I am actually. So I've got those 2 air defense units against me. The reason I'm doing this is because there's a chance that I might actually force him to do something earlier. And that bridge will just become open. Oh, these helicopters, at least they didn't lose it, a quarter strength, but quarter strength, so that would have been 0.2. So the artillery really did the whacking, and the airstrikes did a little bit more. So, but the point is, what I'm saying is, if we keep damaging that, he'll run away, and then my units will be able to just go straight through there. Right, so that's that. So, now I think that the Iraqis are going, because they're going to get an artillery strike and the air power again, and it's just going to get worse. So I think they're going to give that position up. And hold there. I think we're going to keep that position because we've not been hit yet. I mean, there's no proactive thing, nothing proactive that we can do. I mean, we can move the armour out, but that would just, you know, it's one of these games, I've seen them done before, and you can't win really as the Iraqis. I've seen someone play a simulation of, I think, the 1991 invasion of Iraq, and it wasn't very good as far as I'm concerned, but they basically blew everything up on the first turn, which I disagreed with a little. I didn't think it was very particularly interesting, or didn't, you know, it wasn't really a compelling insight into what happened. But the point is, the coalition did have a huge amount of air power, and that's pretty much what they were doing. And the Iraqis really didn't, you know, they couldn't do anything. There was no sort of manoeuvring on their part. I mean, their command and control was pretty much knackered even before the invasion started, so they weren't able to respond to anything. So there was nothing really they did. They just sat in the towns and made it difficult for them to take them. So there's not much, and that's reflected here. I'm trying to get to. We can't do it. It's not as though we can just come out with a sort of, you know, a lightning strike along here, and you know, cripple this unit here, rush back in here and still defend, or, you know, when these units are a little ahead of themselves. And we didn't move that one, look. Oh god, that's me. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So these have come off the road now. I didn't have to, so they could get back on the road to go over, you know, over the bridge. But that's how it works. So the Iraqis are not going to do anything else, and the Americans essentially moving off board. Yeah, you can hear my processor. Oh no, maybe you can't. It's just the sound of that I thought, you know, I bought this new computer and I thought, oh, I'm getting a new computer. It's got twice as much RAM. That last computer lasted me for 4 years. It was fine. And this one's got touch screen, and the touch screen technology is rubbish. I just switched it off. I switched the touch screen off. I switched the mouse pad off because it keeps selecting things like what we did there. You do something. You think, oh, I'm going to do this, and you know, the computers are not getting better, they're getting worse. My ones are anyway, because I buy cheap ass computers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That should be the end of their move. Yep. So there's us utilising the highway for extended mobility. Yep. So now the bridge is open, but we don't have any more movement. Now the question is, what do we do with these? We bring them back onto there and along the road. I think I'm going to get onto the road. 3 movement. Yeah, that's the right way to do it. Let's move. Now they've not got any artillery. Presumably we've blown it all up. It's a fallacy really to think they had artillery everywhere, because I often think, I often overload games with extra stuff, but you know, artillery wasn't actually everywhere. They might have had mortars, you know, RPGs and things like that, but they didn't have artillery everywhere. And sort of reference to it, so I haven't put any in, but I've given the Allies some because they must have had something in support. So we got there, and we've got 3 movement left now, and I think that could probably cover 1 movement into there, or possibly 2. Now historically the armoured units came in more from here, so in theory we would come along there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them there for this turn. He's moved up. Oh, come on. Just give that processor a bit of time to stop getting so excited. Every time I sort of misclick that, it starts whirring up. I should try and record that sound. It's the sound of pain from my point of view. It just... yeah. Anyway. So, the reason I'm sat there because we're going to take at least another sort of couple of turns to get those into position. Right, so this unit didn't do it. He moved. Now I'm not going to use my helicopters because I think the anti-aircraft here is too great. But I'm going to use my air power. No effect. Look at that, 2 lots of no effect. Right. Okay, and I'm not going to use this because it's a high chance of it being blown up by the anti-aircraft, by the air defense units. And so I'm going to leave those sort of until we've gotten rid of these. Now we could possibly be using the airstrikes to do that, but what we've got here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see what we can get this into there. Yes, I'm going to use my artillery on there because I want to try and get rid of these air defense units. I was hoping to get some startling results on that infantry unit, and press the button maybe 1.8. You know, to finish it off that turn. You know, if I could have got something on that, maybe I should put my artillery on that, but I don't want to keep chasing it. I'd rather deal with the anti-air defense units so I can get my helicopters in there and start using my air units with a little less worry. 1.8. Okay. Well, to be quite honest, the Iraqis are not going to do anything, so I'm not going to do anything more. It's sort of interesting, really, from the point of view that I just spent, 36 minutes moving the units from there to there and haven't actually engaged. We haven't even got there yet. And in theory, if I was trying to make it more entertaining as a video, I would have maybe paused the video and said, okay, after my first turn I've done this, but I don't like doing it like that. I just want to really, perhaps give a narrative overview of, what's happening and the significance of what's happening. And I think I've done that. I mean, obviously, that we're going to sort of at some point engage with Basra, presumably win, but it took 2 weeks to do, and I don't think it's going to be that simple to do, because it's one of these things you still got to actually do it. You've got to take each hex at a time, and no matter how easy it might feel, it's going to take a while. So how long it takes will be interesting. But I think the sort of interesting thing about this is the early decisions on which routes you take, and the implications of the Americans just sort of passing straight through. And those are sort of to some extent as interesting as the battle itself. Although I don't think really the route they took was a big issue for them, but it is in the game sense, and that's one of the reasons why I've included the map as it is. As I've probably said a few times on other games, if you think about it, I could have made the map a small one, that big, and then just put the coalition forces in the position for the attack on Basra, and they could have been sort of all there and some there. Maybe a bit bigger with a few more hexes, etc., etc. But I've deliberately done it like this so that you've got that scope for the manoeuvre and how you do it. I mean, for example, we could have come straight across here and got onto that road and come up that way. As I said, these are not particularly critical options. How you do it really doesn't matter, because you're still going to end up at these same hexes. But I've deliberately given that sort of scope for how you do it, just to extend those sort of mental muscles of contemplating the significance of road movement over highway movement over road movement over track movement. I mean, this was, now I didn't design that in there, but it's obviously something that is an issue, and the significance obviously of these little rivers over the big rivers, etc., etc. So you'll just have to sort of imagine the actual attack going into Basra, or you can sign up and play it yourself. The big thing about this game, in comparison to a lot of the other games, not in general, but it's quite specific about what happened. It's quite well documented, as opposed to a lot of other games, especially the more recent, Middle East scenarios, where really you don't know what's happening, you don't know anything about the orders of battle. The orders of battle here are quite specific, but on the Wikipedia page it's not particularly specific. So I still got a lot of guesswork. The actual order of battle came from a BBC graphic that actually showed sort of where the units went in. So I don't really know whether or not this is complete, but you know, so if you've got a better perspective on what was there, etc., etc., then you know, let me know. But what I'm saying is, this is one of the things where it's a little more, it's a little tighter in the sort of the order of battle. But I don't know anything about who was in Basra from the point of view of the Iraqi forces. I do recall reading somewhere in something that one of the units was named, but I didn't remember where I read it and I forgot. So nothing in here is a specific unit. So you know, there probably was a sort of very clear order of battle for the Iraqis in Basra and where they were, and you know, if I find that information out, I can come back and redo it. But anyway, so you know, I hope that gives you an idea about the Battle of Basra and you know, how this map works and etc., etc., and gets you thinking. Hope you enjoy that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio, bye.